I can promise you without a doubt, I never thought for 1 second that I would ever be involved in that industry.
So this is what I want to talk about.
I'd be very surprised if there's another person that owns a pet crematorium as well as being a veterinarian around the world. I just don't know of anyone.
I'm not sure I enjoy the word entrepreneur.
People who use it wrong, in my opinion, I don't think they've actually done it as much as they haven't really been in the kind of trenches, so to speak.
Ian Barron's a vet, and he's gone off on a tangent and gotten himself into a business that you probably would have never imagined. He's a quiet spoken, successful person and embodies success in a way you probably really relate to, but is not necessarily what you'd think would be conventional. Have a listen to this, see what you think.
Dog behavior is like I would probably consider a specialist area of veterinary medicine as a whole and a discipline.
Is it actually considered as a specialty within veterinary medicine?
I don't believe so. Because there's if you really critique the word, like in the veterinary field, we're very we don't like using the wrong terms. Like if you're a specialist, you have not only graduated as a vet, you've spent time in doing an internship in a specific discipline. You've got your memberships in one of the big kind of institutions that award these titles, and you get that title specialist. But it's thrown around a lot, and I guess that's why. And so a lot of people, you might say, oh, I'm a specialist in this, but it's like, hey, I spent like 6 years and this much money and all this, as well as my 6 year degree. And then you end up you don't want to lose the credit for all that work.
Yeah.
So in the vet industry, I always try to be very respectful of that to people who have done it, because I know the hard yards to get that qualification. It's an interesting industry. Yeah.
Well, the interest in your industry sparked my imagination when I knew you were a vet, but then you went into a very interesting part of, it's not in a veterinary field.
No.
It's an offshoot. It's a tangent. You went off on a tangent.
I did. That's very much me.
You are Mr. Tangent. And I reckon not many people would even turn their minds to it or think there was a thing there, but there's a whole industry, and I haven't said what it is yet.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to start with, why did you become a vet?
Good question. I haven't had this question posed to me a lot, actually. I always find it an interesting one, because I feel like a lot of the things I've done in my life has always been kind of very different. I definitely don't follow a traditional pathway. If you were to ask, say, a majority of a graduating year group, which is normally 90, 100 people, at least in Western Australia, I would say a lot of them have this classic story of, I've always loved animals all my life and want to care for them, look after them, which is, absolutely important, necessary. I would say I was quite different. Well, I always had pets growing up. I think I'm a genuinely caring person, but I never, even in my early 20s, thought about being a vet. I think that's a bit more of a childhood upbringing and limitations, which I'm happy to talk about. But the thing that really kind of set me off was more a big life change when I was 25, 26. And I basically made the decision to live overseas. And basically what happened is I was basically had a kind of normal job. I was basically in sales and management in the telecommunications industry. And I did that for about 6 years. I had a little bit of I guess one of those moments of question when you have some negative kind of situations in your life. The particular situation was for my dad, who was in a pretty bad car accident. He was a delivery driver driving, trucks,
Yep.
and someone basically just decided that was their time to end their life. Yeah, with the pursuit of that, and drove into the other side of the road, and just whatever you want to think of it, but basically led to a pretty horrific crash. Thankfully, my dad didn't pass away. He was injured, but it was probably more psychological after that impacted our family the most. But it was one of those moments that really just kind of made me think about what I was doing. And, after 6 years of a, 20-odd something year old, of doing a kind of job that was kind of boring and I'd outgrown, I kind of just wanted to do something different. And so I had some kind of newish friends that I'd gained while working in this job. And one of them lived overseas as part of just a university exchange. And I was always intrigued by that. I was just blown away with it. I mean, I was born in England, but we moved over like when I was very young, about 4 years old. So, but I was always just intrigued by this whole thing of just living in a different culture and a different country, and that kind of got into my head. And after, considering that incident, I kind of got me thinking about, I guess that classic life's too short type thing, let's just do something different. Yeah. And so fast forward 6 months or so, I was basically living in Thailand of all countries, and it was a cultural exchange program. So it was all done kind of fairly properly. It was using a local host family through this organization. And I was basically the first kind of job, let's say, was teaching English just as maybe as a education assistant or something. Nothing formal, obviously, but enough. Just I was in a primary school teaching English, and I was, I thought it was okay, but it just wasn't for me. I didn't know where I was going to go, and then there was the opportunity of all the different options you can kind of choose from, so to speak. There was a opportunity to work at a dog shelter. Which is in Thailand, yeah. So I was in a very small province, the smallest province in Thailand, right up the border of Burma, called Ranong, and it's only about, I think there's about 15,000 people there. I was probably one of a few Caucasians there. It was great though. I loved it, and it just so happens the family I lived with was actually also had a home. They were quite wealthy because they tend to be, the people that are involved in giving people like myself that come from other countries free accommodation, free food, and all that. So they had another home in a different province in Thailand. So so it worked out really well. So I went there one day, took a 6-hour bus ride, and went down to meet the people that run the rescue. And basically I moved down there like a few days later, and so I started working at this rescue, and it was basically a catch, almost like a spay and release. So spay in the sense of desexing and to control the stray population of animals, cats and dogs in this province. And I just loved it. It was just fun. I was there almost every day. Sometimes we'd be out on the road and take the ute out, and we'd blow dart animals and bring them back, because a lot of them were pretty either suffering from really kind of serious vehicle injuries. Those were the kind of most saddest ones. You'd see, animals that were, they literally have broken backs and they're just dragging themselves around. They would have done it. You would have been doing it for days, weeks, months, even. That really terrible stuff. Like it's stuff that really hardens you. But probably for a good preparation. Looking back. But we end up. What I did after that was. As I was there, actually, I found myself being encouraged to do more and more. So at first it might have just been simple kind of handling and giving medications and such, and cleaning out cages and all the boring kind of, hands-on kind of stuff. And then I found myself being open to doing more, I guess, advanced skills in the area, in the sense of, helping prepare for surgery and giving some more, actually giving proper injections and stuff, and just a little bit involved more the surgery side of things, and preparation and cannularization, so putting in like little ports to put fluids, and so I was there for about 5-6 months rather, and so I learned a lot, as you'd imagine, because I was keen and willing, and it was only a small team. So, and you wouldn't have got away with this in Australia. There was definitely some opportunity, let's say, that you wouldn't get in a normal place, and so ultimately I just learned a lot of skills, and I just loved it, and it was actually the vets that I worked with that were like, you should do this, and I was like, oh, sure, okay. So I actually started looking into it, and I didn't have I'd never gone to university before, just straight from high school, and then what I did is I basically had an opportunity to kind of start like a bridging program to kind of get back into the study period. So I kind of did that for 6 months, and that was okay. It was a good little thing. And then I basically got started. So how it works with veterinary science, you can do 2 ways. You can basically go straight into it from high school, assuming your kind of relevant scores are to a very high standard.
They've got to be pretty high, don't they?
Very, yeah.
Is it almost like, or is it the same as medical?
It's pretty much the same. Yeah, I don't remember. I think the difference was something like, if you're looking at like, I don't know if they call them ATARs now, but it was like 95 to 96 percentile. So it's pretty high up there. Yeah, so you can go that way straight to school. If you're not, basically you're classified as a mature age student. So you have to basically, to qualify into vet, because it's so competitive, it was something like you would have about around 2,000 to 3,000 applications for 90 to 100 placements.
Still like that now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it might even be more so competitive.
Yeah, okay.
And then you have of that kind of 100, say, odd students, you would have, say, 30, I believe, just roughly, it was something around the lines of like maybe 30 to 40% were direct high school transfers. And then you would have maybe 30% or 25-30% international students, and then you would have the mature age students. So you were already kind of competing for a spot in a very hyper competitive environment anyway. So my goal was just like, okay, I have to do basically a year of a science degree, and then I can apply to start.
Yep.
So, and that's essentially what I did. I just put all my time and effort into just doing the best I could possibly do, and studying and getting the best grades I could, combining that with experience at local rescues. I worked at one of the wildlife centres in Bibra Lake the whole time, and basically I did anything in my mind that I think was going to put me over the top. I just kind of tried to think of it very strategically, and like I need to try and stand out as much as I could, and
did it work?
Yeah, it worked. Yeah. So yeah, it was great. So then just one random, I applied, and then one random morning before the semester started, it was just got the email saying I was in, and that was it. I was like, beauty. And so that's the easy part.
How many years of study is a veterinary degree?
So if you do my way, it's 6 years.
Yep.
So as a mature student, you have to do that bridging that first year, and then you do the 5 years, and it's basically a double degree from there. As part of that 5 years. It has changed recently. So anyone that's kind of considering applying or using going into the industry now, you do a medical. A science degree, and then you do a doctorate degree, which is a bit different in the way they do it. I believe it's a similar time frame. It's just a different kind of qualification type. It mimics more of the American method of qualification. So 6 years is what it took me.
So what happened after 6 years? So you got your degree. You go, I've got it. What do you do now?
So again, to go back to the point, I guess, of not being the very traditional person, let's say, if there's even a thing, I was always doing something random. Like I've always been a hard worker. I'm just a hardworking person. My first job when I was 14, 15, and kind of never really stopped. And so while I was, when I was a student, I was working two jobs technically. I worked at a vet clinic and I was basically living at the clinic. And so I had a free accommodation of a room upstairs. And my job was to look after any overnight patients. So just make sure their fluid pumps are still working and nothing's, or maybe give the occasional medication for a weird time frame. And then my other part of the job was to look after the cattery, which is a boarding facility for cats. So that was my job. I basically had to get up every morning and clean up all the cages for about, up to 30 cats at a time, and as well as looking after the animals. And then I also had a job at Woolies as well, as my other morning job. And so I basically kind of balanced that with my studies. I wasn't the best student. I did get through it, obviously, but basically I was just kind of doing everything I could just to get by and be a somewhat normal university student. I did it all myself, so I didn't have anyone to kind of fall back on. It was just kind of just did what I had to do. And then when I learned a lot of good advice from a lot of other vets while I was especially the last year. I met some really good people, and I guess now important people that I know who basically kind of just put some ideas in my head about the whole idea of doing something yourself. And I was always interested in that. I'd already dabbled before in my life, in my 20s, about little stuff, just kind of buying something for this much and selling for that, like a bit of an eBay kind of little side hustle, and a few other little various things I tried and failed because of, just probably just immaturity and inexperience, but looking back, all good, valuable lessons in the long run, of course. But what I found is after I, towards the end of the university degree, pretty much the hardest. This is like the hardest part of the degree as well. Like the last 6 to 12 months or so is the real hard yards, because you're doing prac placement, so you're working in the hospital doing shifts, some of them overnight. You're also going to lectures, and lectures. You'd have maybe somewhere between from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. So you're spending a lot of that, and then you're doing other stuff.
How do you concentrate for that amount of hours?
It's not easy.
That's worse than going to a convention.
It's not hard.
You go to a convention, you've got to sit through stuff.
Yeah,
falling asleep, and it's only 2 minutes in.
And it's not easy stuff. That's the thing. This is really complicated. Physiological pharmacology. It's everything. It's hard stuff, and so it's definitely not easy. And especially for someone like me who's a big procrastinator, I work very efficient when the deadlines start to rock up. But when I was doing it, amongst all that, I was still working a job. I was actually working 2 jobs, actually. I had my Woolworths job, and I went back to doing a job on the weekend selling mobile phones for Virgin Mobile on Sunday. So I thought, why not? So but for the last 6 months is when I started thinking about actually doing what I wanted to do. So after graduation, it was becoming a little bit more of a reality. And the one thing I learned from one of my, colleagues / unofficial mentors, I could say, is that just, not only working for yourself. I guess my goal was, I always thought I was going to own my own practice. That's what I was like, okay, I'm going to have my own clinic, and that's what I wanted. Yep. The reality of it, is more the financial aspect of it, and that was my kind of setback. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do? I was like, and then someone I learned from, they were doing home visits, and they were doing essentially self-employed. And so I kind of become fixated on that idea of just doing that, because I was like, well, that makes sense. Run as a sole trader. Yep. Don't have to do a lot, and hopefully that'll kind of balance and increase my income, et cetera, especially because once you graduate, you're not on a high income.
Yeah, vets don't get paid much, do they?
My first job, I was paid $27.50 an hour.
Wow.
So
how long ago was that? Just to give a
not that long ago. Again, being a mature. So I started uni when I was 27. Yep. So I would have been 33, 34. So I was earning more money selling mobile phones.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like doctoring, really, isn't it? You spend all these years studying, And they stick you in a hospital and pay you very little and flog you.
There's a lot of reasons for that. I think it's understandably, you're coming in, you learn, you have a lot of knowledge in your head, but you don't actually have a lot of
experience,
just practical stuff. So I understand it. Especially now being a business owner, I probably appreciate that more than what I did at the time, for sure. So I have a lot more respect for my old boss in the struggles, let's say. But I essentially, in the last 6 months, I started creating my little, probably poorly designed business plan, I guess. I never would have called it a business plan at the time, but it probably was. But it was just like thinking of what I needed and like how much I was going to have how much money I needed. I started even making my website. Like I did everything on a kind of low budget. Anything I could do myself, I was like, I'm going to do it myself. So I literally had the website ready to go. I hadn't even graduated yet. So that's how keen I was. I actually started accumulating supplies and, microchip scanners and little bits and stuff like that, just buying stuff, whatever I could, and thinking I needed to have and ready. So at this point, I actually already had a job lined up as well. I was very lucky in the sense of I got the first city-based general practice new grad job. So like a whole bunch of people applied, and for whatever reason, I got it.
You're the man.
So so I already had that lined up. I just have to wait for the official graduation to go through. But it wasn't long after I started working. At that job, I was doing home visits as well. So I basically
on your own or through?
No, by myself. Yeah. I just basically it was all organic. I basically thought, okay, how, again, on the principles of trying to keep it very low budget, how can I get some business? So I went on Facebook marketplace, Facebook groups, community groups.
Yep.
And what I did is I just looked for the one in the community. I was a resident of Morley at the time, and it was like a Morley, residents of Morley type place. And I essentially just said, hey, look, I'm a mobile vet in the area. This is my prices. And that day I already booked a few appointments for the following week. It was as easy as that. Yeah, it was just simple. I'd never spent a single dollar on advertising. And, there's a lot more mobile vet services now than there was even, 7 or so years ago. But it's, but what I just did is I'd have my shift, I'd just book it. Again, this is really basic stuff. We're not talking about anything complicated. Yep. It was just, basic in the sense of like vaccinations, microchipping, just very, I didn't want to put myself in the deep end. It was just kind of very
You're not going to do complex surgery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just very basic services and just just something that anything that's non-urgent, that I have flexibility with booking the time around my schedule.
Yep.
And that's essentially what I did. So I would just find myself I'd do my shift at the clinic, and then after that I'd go straight out to whatever appointments I may have do a few consults and a few vaccinations and checkups and stuff like that. And that was essentially kind of my life for a while until it started just organically growing. And then it kind of teeter-tottered where I was kind of going like from full-time, and then the mobile vet work was just slowly getting up, and I was starting to feel the pressure of trying to, balance that act. And then so then I went down to part-time. And then increase the vet work.
You just gradually let it go.
Yeah, I just kind of like, and that's, I guess, if I may reveal my next stage of my life, which was basically how I started a pet crematorium.
So this is what I want to talk about, because this is the tangent.
Yes.
Who would think about?
Absolutely.
I'll go and start a pet crematorium. That's a great idea.
Yeah, it's those stories where people tell you and they're like, I never would have thought this. I would never anticipated myself doing this 10 years ago and such. It's exactly that story. I can promise you without a doubt, I never thought for 1 second that I would ever be involved in that industry.
How did you even come to the realization that, maybe I should do that?
Good question. It's a common question as well, actually. Interestingly, it's because it is very unusual industry and very niche as it is standalone. But I'm probably I'd be very surprised if there's another person that owns a pet crematorium, as well as being a veterinarian around the world. I just don't know of anyone like that. So
because your competition are actually funeral parlours, like for humans, aren't they?
Well, one of the bigger competitors are that their umbrella company is in that business. Yep. So they have human funeral and cremation services, but they also have pet cremation businesses.
So that was addition.
So in a sense, yes, one of my biggest competitor is a big corporate. Yep. So and that's certainly some part of it that adds to a bit of the challenge, as we can always touch on if need be. But I guess the story of how it happened was really the mobile vet work. And so one of the unexpected areas of the work I was actually doing. So again, I was really just focused on basic stuff. But what I found people started requesting was actually, could I do euthanasias at home as opposed to bringing them at the clinic? So
can you do that?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. There's no legal or limitations to my license and the board registration. So there are definitely a lot of limitations when it comes to surgery and things like that. I wouldn't even touch that. It's like there's a reason why it's done in a clinic when you've got support team and such. But basically, as far as the act of euthanasia, it is somewhat simple, and there's certain drugs you use, and there's some limitations around that, like what kind of scheduled drugs, can you use kind of very high strong opioids or not? There's a lot of rules and regulations around that and permits and such, but generally speaking, it is absolutely something you do at home and what can do at home rather. And what I found is I actually found myself doing those a lot more. And I guess the most unusual thing I found myself actually, and it's a weird thing to say, I actually found myself becoming quite good at them. And it's not good in the sense necessarily of the practical skills of doing it, but just managing the people and the family and looking after them during that, terrible time, let's be honest. And so for whatever reason, I just developed a good way of doing it. And I guess I built up a good reputation that people were at least recommending me to their friends and family to help them at those difficult times. And I guess to fast forward a little bit from there, what I found myself, I guess, and this is a bit of my personality, but I found myself really kind of starting to critique some of the little things about the industry, because my job was not only just to be there for the euthanasia side of things, but what I was actually also then responsible was then the next stage, which was then the aftercare, the cremation side of things. So what do we do with the pet after it's deceased?
What are the options? Because I've never actually
good question.
Stopped to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, people don't think about this stuff. It's a really, it's an industry that's very niche and not talked about often. It's unfortunately, but I hope to, and one of my bigger goals for the company is to rectify that and discuss it more openly and have honest conversations about what happens behind the scenes, let's say. But basically, if your pet has passed, you can, you can bury your pet. That's
what we used to do
thing.
In the old days.
Exactly.
You go in the back garden, dig a hole.
It's becoming less, not to go into the kind of whole residential situation, but, as houses get smaller, the land and stuff. And so it's actually becoming a physical limitation now. It's not just a personal choice of what your wishes may be. But, burial is still absolutely done. Obviously, there are some, maybe not obviously, but there are some limitations with different councils and what can and can't be done and what you can bury. And sometimes pets, in some councils, I believe you can't bury them. But
how would they know anyway?
Exactly. Really? Look, I'm not there to enforce that. So and look, again, I would say I'm more respectful of that person's individual choice to decide what they want to do. It's their pet; they know what they want. And so, with the exception of that, really, the only other options are cremation, and then that comes in. There's two forms of cremation, you could say. And it really comes down to whether you would want your pet's ashes back to you, or if you would not want them back for whatever reason. And again, completely personal experiences. There shouldn't be any judgment, and we certainly don't judge that choice. That's really kind of how it would go. Yeah, you'd really be deciding between home burial or cremation services of some degree, let's say. Then with how it kind of goes on from there is, and I guess my involvement as a mobile vet, what I would do then is you didn't have a lot of options, especially the early days. There wasn't a lot of options really for the transportation side of things. So basically it was my kind of somewhat duty, I would say, to try and help these people. And so what I would do, I would basically transport the pet after the euthanasia, and I would transport it to a crematorium that I had an arrangement with, a local one, where I could bring the pet to their premises and do a handover to of which is my competitor. But basically there were a lot of things I learned that I didn't like about doing that. And and it was actually, it's not the act of transporting a pet, but rather how we transport them and what we transport them in, and what they end up in, let's say, openly, when they arrive at a cremation facility. And for probably as long as the service has existed in the pet cremation world.
How long has it been around?
So the early 80s is the earliest dates that a competitor has mentioned of their trading, let's say. That particular company was bought out by the bigger company a few years back. But basically the 80s. Yeah. So
it's been around 40 odd years.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and for that time, basically the standard of how a pet is transported and how they're ultimately stored before the cremation is essentially a bag, a black bag, and unfortunately, there's no real nicer way other than to describe it as somewhat relatable to like a garbage bag, sadly, and it would be a cable tie would be placed around the top with a identification slip.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot of the things I didn't like about it were both moral and even practical. The practical aspects of transporting a pet when you're going from usually in a bed on the floor to the back of a vehicle, you kind of don't have much option. So I never liked that option. I never liked using these bags, but I didn't have any option. But what I decided is I never would actually do that part in front of customers because I was basically embarrassed to do it. And I didn't want them to see that. So I would always hide it. So what I would do is that I would usually encourage them to be transported with their pet's bed, or I would bring something myself, a nice blanket or towels and such, just to help lift them up, especially the larger dogs. And what I found was I actually ended up having to drive around the corner to somewhere secluded, and then to try to have to kind of place them into this bag, and once you get to the larger side of pets, it's very, very difficult to do.
I can imagine a Rottweiler at 60, 70 kilos.
Correct. Yeah.
Try getting that into a garbage bag.
A one-ended bag, so they were the challenges I had on the road, let's so to speak, and the areas I didn't really like of the industry, and it always reminds me when I talk about these times a memory I have very, very kind of solid in my head of seeing my first experience of someone actually, and just very early on in my vet career, seeing one of the nurses to no other reason than just doing what was the standard at the time, which was trying to place a large breed dog into a body bag, and I could kind of see her like get it half in, and then she had to kind of like shuffle it up and just like you're kind of packing a bag of, I don't know, laundry or something, and again, no disrespect to the person, who did it. It's just one of those situations where she was just doing.
What else can she do?
Exactly.
Right?
What else could she do? Exactly. Yeah. And so, when I kind of piece all those puzzles together and those memories together, I just found myself just kind of questioning it. And I guess the kind of more inquisitive side of me just got thinking like, surely there's something better we could do.
And what's
it? Yes, there is, but it was very limited. That's the problem. So what I did is how it all kind of started is I actually started researching into options, because in my head I was like, well, I've seen, NCIS and all those crime shows, and like, the human style body bags, they're kind of have a zipper on them and handles and all these kind of things to facilitate, more respectful handling of a human. So I said, why can't we pass that on to our pets? And so I basically looked into it. I found there was one company that made one that was a very similar kind of, I would probably describe for anyone listening, most closest to a human style body bag.
Yep.
They were based in Canada, great looking product, didn't have any distributors in Australia. I decided to try to make my own instead. And that's where I led to. I basically started doing some research and found a company that was willing to start making these body bags for the purpose. And then I run into the hurdle of the volume capacities, and obviously being a single person, that old chestnut, and as you'd imagine, like a lot of things, there's not a lot of, you can't economically make a custom body bag in Australia. So I had to obviously outsource it to an overseas company, but with minimum quantity orders and all those, it just didn't make sense for me to justify doing such a thing for the sake of just me using those. So I had to look at a kind of bigger picture. And then with that in mind, I started then kind of thinking about and having more interaction with the pet crematorium as I would go there. I'd have to have some interactions and kind of getting a bit of understanding of like what they come back with, like the urns and the different keepsakes and stuff. And again, just my personality just said, look, I think I can do better. I just felt like a lot of them were outdated. They were like something that I would expect more of an older person would have. And I don't think I kind of had a different vision of what an urn, for example, could be. And I felt like an urn doesn't have to be this kind of, vase-shaped object that you might expect to see in your grandmother's house. I felt it could just be a bit more unique and a little bit more representative of a pet. And I had this concept in my mind of what I wanted to do for an urn as well. So look, I guess fast forward all these ideas, I basically just had one of those Friday nights, glass of wine with my now wife and my best friend at the time, and I just kind of brought it up randomly and talked about it, and we were just all like kind of buzzing about the idea of like, hey, we could probably do this, and that's pretty much what we did. We started looking into it, looking at the costs to get the, what machinery do we need, what kind of building, and et cetera, and
because it's quite a thing, actually, isn't it? When you think about it, I've seen the furnace, and it's not a small undertaking. You need huge amount of gas supply.
Correct.
Of course, you've got to burn at a high temperature. It's fluid. There's regulation.
Correct. Yeah. It is a lot involved. I won't bore you with the nitty gritty of it, but basically, it's again one of those beautiful experiences. You look back now and think if I ever need to set up a premises with a gas supply, like I'm your man. Come and see me. I can save you a lot of time and money because it's But one of those things you just got to learn as you go. And this is, I guess, probably the biggest thing I could say about the industry is that because it is so niche, there is no rule book, If you're setting up a accounting firm, whatever, retail store, there's so many resources you can do and follow a nice, like kind of,
there's a pathway.
cookie cutter approach, let's say, to how to start. But when it comes to pet cremation, there's nothing out there. Even online, you look now, you won't find a business plan or a guide book to do this. So in a way, there's good and bad with that, because it means you could go in the wrong direction and do things maybe not in the right way. But thankfully, I think I have very good morals and believe that I can I could do it in a way that was with the overarching goal of doing it to better the industry.
Yep.
And that was my goal, really. It was genuinely that. My goal from the beginning was, we don't need these outdated practices of using these body bags. Like, here's a product that we can use that is not only better for the veterinary staff, that they can transport their clients, their patients better and more respectfully, but they don't have to be ashamed of telling their clients and the owners of these pets what is happening after. Because some people they turn a blind eye to it, but it's unfortunate, because now I'm at the situation where I'm proud of what I do, and I want people to know that, whatever you're thinking, it's not that. It's actually much, much nicer. And I can't speak for everyone, but I can speak for my company and what we do. And so so the goal was really just to change the industry. It was to basically say, and that was really my point of difference when it come to trying to get agreements and service agreements with getting clinics to give me a chance as well. It was that this is my goal. It's like, I want to get away from this and I want to do it this way. And meanwhile, we can also do this and this and these kind of creative new products. Yeah.
As you go.
Correct.
To attract more clients, but from a place that you actually know, because you've been on the other end.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
How long's it taking you to get to this point? Because now, would you say the business is successful now?
I don't know how to answer that. I don't know if I really, to be honest, because I think I'm the type of person that's not always completely satisfied. I'm just one of those people that's always trying to just get things better and like really fine tune and get, if I can think of a way to improve something, it doesn't necessarily have to be efficiency or anything like that. It's just, I just always want to try and find ways to do something better and a little bit more interesting and a bit more unique. We are stable enough that I'm getting to where I can start to try and explore ideas that I have banked up, which is wonderful.
So how would you describe success? What does that look like for Ian Barron?
It's changed a lot, I think, in my life. Yeah, I don't think I was always. There was definitely a motivation of financial success, I would say, and that's just coming from a working class family, and parents always struggling, come from a big family as well, so just make it harder, and kind of always having to fend for myself. And so there was that side of it, but it wasn't for the goal of having a Lamborghini and anything, just to feel content and just know that I've got a little bit of a safety net if I need it. As I get older, and now being over 40, I definitely more so value that. So my idea is really having stability and safety and not having to worry about what I spend when I go out for a dinner.
Yep.
That's a weird analogy, but I actually I'm kind of stealing that from someone. I heard it, but I like the idea of just being able to go to a restaurant and buy what I want without thinking about. And I'm pretty good anyway in that regard. I don't like to waste money, but I like to spend on things that are important to me. And I think that's probably what it's all about, really, isn't it? Doing things that you want to do and not have a bit of time to be creative. That's the part I like, because I am a creative person. I like to kind of think of new ideas, and having that freedom to make those ideas a reality is really cool. I love that. I love that it doesn't have to be limited by money or necessarily time. And that's kind of my goal really at the moment, is to learn to become, I guess, better in a person in general. I'm always trying to grow and learn and be a little bit better than what I was the day before. But I'm still human. You still go a few back steps and here and there. But really, I just like to be comfortable enough that I can have a easier life than what I know my parents had. So yeah, and I think that comes back to a lot of people, I'm sure, share the same sentiment. But it's more of being comfortable enough when those times come, where if you need to be there to help people out, that you can kind of maybe, it doesn't necessarily have to be financial as well, because I don't necessarily see success with just financial. I think there's a whole lot more to that, and I feel that more so as I get older. But I really do try to learn from mistakes and grow, and hopefully I can share that wisdom as well, which I think is a really big part, and I'm sure you can agree with that, because that starts to become something you realize that you can share your lessons and your wins and your losses and everything, and you can kind of pass that on to someone and hopefully inspire them to try something they didn't have the courage to do.
That's an adventure on its own, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that how you frame success, because oftentimes I think we glorify even the word, hearing the word success, I see a lot of people start to glorify what it means. I don't know if they believe it at heart. It's almost like we've been marketed to I wouldn't even say believe, to be able to talk about success in a different way. Whereas how you describe it, put $100 on the table now to say there'd be a lot more people who'd relate to that and be at peace and be really comfortable with that, to say, hey, if that was success, I can do that. Or I'm there already.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel really good about that.
Yeah.
Hey, wow, I'm successful.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I don't have to subscribe to the hype around the word and what that seems to mean, which is very superficial. It's so different for everyone. But I think we live in a very wealthy, fortunate country.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in WA, definitely a fortunate part of the bigger fortunate country.
Correct.
And just to be able to do that, I think on a world scale, if you actually if you were able to zoom out, I think you could appreciate that all of us could be more grateful for the success we probably already have, but maybe we take for granted.
Yeah, I'd be definitely guilty of that. Like, so I don't. I'm definitely sometimes I just have to kind of take a moment and go, look, you're doing okay. Just just don't be so hard on yourself. And it's it is. I guess it's. I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but it's that can be a struggle at times. Is trying to just put things into reality and not be so hard on yourself, and actually try to realize that, hey, you're doing good things and you got the right attitude and you're working towards your goals. And sometimes you just have to realize that you've probably already passed them. And sometimes you set these goals and you get to them, and then it's like, okay, what's the next goal? What's the next goal? And you just, I think that's I think I've heard it described roughly as the entrepreneurial trap, where you kind of just keep for the next thing and the next thing, you're never satisfied. And that's where you need to kind of take time to reflect on what's important to you, and really what do you need in your life and what don't you need in your life, and trying to get as close to that as you can. And that's kind of that's my mission at the moment. I spent the last few years trying to do.
Yeah, it's a human being work in progress, isn't it? And I see it amongst business communities. I'm not sure I enjoy the word entrepreneur.
I don't like it. I feel a little bit like it's a bit cheesy almost, or I feel like it's thrown out there a lot, and I think people don't really. I don't think people who use it wrong, in my opinion, I don't think they've actually done it. as much as they haven't really been in the kind of trenches, so to speak. Basically, they really it's that whole thing of like you don't really realize how much is involved until you're in there really doing it. And I think it's I don't like throwing that word out at all. Yeah, I don't know if I describe myself as that person. I describe myself as a person that, and it might fit the definition of it, but I describe myself as a person that's always trying to do better, whether it's thinking of ways to do things better, or whether it's for me personally, or on my staff, my team, and the business. You need to remember you need to give more appreciation, I think, for the risk it takes, and for the real true grit to stay in it and just keep at it.
And you do need grit, so, I think, in business. You need it for sure.
Exactly.
The entrepreneurs thing, I'd love to talk about this more.
Yeah.
I'll wrap it on and get on my pedestal. But I will touch on it.
Yeah, please. I'd love to hear. Yeah.
What bothers me, a word's just a word, right? A word is an attempt to describe something in order to communicate. So,
exactly.
Entrepreneur, whatever. I think what strikes me about it is when people use that to describe how they see their identity. And I feel that could be damaging because you're not what you do. You are who you are. And there's a big difference. When I ask people, who is Ian Barron? Well, he might start telling me what he does. I go, well, hang on a second.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who are you? And I think I get a sense people very easily get lost in relating what they do as their identity rather than who they are. And that creates an enormous amount of internal discourse.
I think you said that perfect. Yeah, it's that classic question of who are you, and what I would describe as the textbook response seems to be towards job, career, titles that come with that. And nothing wrong with answering that question. Perhaps that is the on paper answer to the question, or the job interview question. But it's an interesting one. I try to reflect on it sometimes, and then I think about it, and then I'm like, oh gosh, all I can think of is like adjectives that I could describe myself. But there's definitely key ones that I think of when I think of myself. I think of, like, my favorite one is calculated risk taker. Yeah, that's what I've learned over the years when I think back at what I've done. Like, I'm not totally just kind of like irresponsibly making decisions, but there's definitely a lot of risk there, but there's a lot of thought behind it. And a lot of I'm okay with losing everything if I make a decision like that, like a big decision, like starting a business.
It's quite a thing, isn't it? To understand and think through, okay, if I make this decision and I go ahead, it'll be lots of work and I might lose everything. And then to be okay with it. Do you think that's a character trait, or have you taught yourself to be that way?
That's a good question. I think I've taught myself. Yeah. Yeah, I think I've just learned it over time. I guess it's an experience thing, perhaps. Yeah, maybe it's a micro little putting your foot out there on micro levels, and then just building confidence in yourself. So there's probably a part of me, maybe that's just part of me. I think even when I think back into my really early, even teenage life, like just being a silly boy, and there's some things I look back and I'm like, gosh, did I really do that? Like, what was I thinking? But I think what you need to do, and this is what I've tried to do more recently, is try to build on those and actually try to learn to trust yourself. think it's really hard to trust yourself sometimes. I don't know if that's a common feeling, but I don't really find, how can I put this? I think I learn as I go, basically. And what I'll do is I'll kind of spend a lot of time thinking about things kind of obsessively somewhat, and writing down different things. And these days I try not to get too bogged down on the fun stuff. I try to look at the reality of it, and that's what I tell people. And I very much enjoy trying to help people to start, little ventures themselves. And that's one of the first things I try to tell them is like, don't worry about the logo and all this, like let's just think about that's the fun stuff. Fun stuff comes later, But I think probably what I really do is I think the way I look at it is I try to really just trust my instincts, and I think again it is a learnt experience. I would say, it's a combination, but I think it's primarily, for me at least, it's a learnt experience. I think I've just had enough variation in different jobs and different working amongst different people, and I think the best thing you can do is try to learn and take in what you believe and to trust your gut in what is a good decision, what is not a bad decision. And I think if you can gather all that information, it just kind of forms you very well. But being open-minded enough is probably one of the first steps, really, isn't it? To kind of
fairly big deal. Being open-minded, bigger deal than I think. We credit it for. I want to ask you a question around what security looks like for you.
Security, yeah.
And I'll tell you where I'm going after you answer the question.
Sure. Okay.
It's not really a trick, but...
No, it's okay. I hope not.
It's just a question.
Just a question, no. Security, okay. Security. I would say, I guess I would probably have to put it towards... There's two aspects of it that I think of. I think security in the sense of course, financial, and then I think security in the sense of, let's say, family. I don't have a family in the sense I don't have kids, but I have a wonderful wife, and those two parts are probably, that's what comes to my head first, security.
So let's go with that, because I think for most people what comes to your head first is real. Your brain doesn't have time to creatively fabricate. And where I was going with that, I was reconciling in my head when earlier in our conversation you said something along the lines of you value security, and that was important to you. And I don't think it's contradictory, but there's something interesting in you making a decision to take a big risk where you could lose it all. And that speaks to me of, I could lose the security that I value so much. So I was trying to work out, is that actually a contradiction? I feel that it's not actually a contradiction, but there's something in that, and I have a theory that I'm going to put to you.
Sure.
And you just might be totally off the mark.
No, it's a good observation, actually. I think it's almost, I would say I believe the risks that I've taken will lead to that security. I think actually what will happen is I'm going to take this because the potential benefit is going to lead me closer to gaining that security.
So does that mean you don't have that security now? Or before, when you make that decision? Not necessarily
I would say
now.
at the time, not necessarily now. I guess you start to have, as you probably know, as you start to get more responsibility, you definitely need to be more calculated, and some risks you don't want to take because I'm no longer responsible just for me. I've got not only a wife, but also a team of employees that I care about. So the risks, then I guess I lower my risk taking for the greater good of the important people in my life.
And I might touch on that later, because I think something people don't often hear is that I think a lot of business owners, one commonality, if you take the time to ask them about it, is they care deeply and feel a deep sense of responsibility for their staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they know, hang on a sec, you rely on this wage or salary to survive. And if I screwed this up, it's not just me. You're gone too.
That's absolutely.
And, we lose sleep over that. A lot of us lose hours of sleep over it.
Definitely.
And I don't think that gets enough airtime, frankly. But all right, that's
I
now
agree.
the pedestal again.
Let
me go back to
agree.
where I wandered off from. is my theory, and I think I hear it from you already, is to say that when you make that decision knowing that security for you equals, let me call it family and finance, yet you're going to take a risk which could jeopardize all of that. I think the gap I would call and describe as belief.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah, I agree. That's exactly it. Yeah.
And from that belief that I believe so strongly that the decision is right, and I'll find a way to make this work that will enhance that security position, that I'll put this on the line.
Yeah.
And I think answer is another question around grit. Where does that come from? It comes from that solid belief.
Yeah. I 100%. My first response to that is exactly, I believe whatever happens, I have the grit and ethics and perseverance to make it work. And even now, if I lost half my team, for example, I know I still have that in me to go back and get on the tools, so to speak, and do what I have to do to get back to that stage. And again, probably definitely a learned experience, like if it's one of those things you build on throughout your life. But it's one thing I value highly is that I'm not afraid of hard work, and I know I'll put myself, I'll do whatever it takes. And I guess it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, really, isn't it? Because, or at least in my experience, I found myself probably working a little bit too much and maybe doing the things I didn't really need to do. And I should have probably delegated much better than thankfully I'm much better than that. I'm learning still, as you do. But I think it is. It's belief. Yeah, self-belief. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a good description of it. Yeah.
Because people do ask me, because again, we bandy around terms and people don't understand where that comes from. Where does belief come from? How do I know my idea is good? How do I believe it's good enough that actually I'm comfortable to risk everything? And I'll declare most of us are not comfortable when we risk everything.
Yeah.
There's a level of uncomfortability, but the belief overrides that to say, I think it will be right, but it's not the end of the world. But we're going to give it a crack because what we think is on the other side is way better. So let's try.
Yeah.
But again, for another time, it would be very interesting to pull apart how we develop those beliefs.
I agree. Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people who ask those questions and they're not answered. Or not answered in such a way that somebody who's listening can pull it apart and help them construct or understand how to construct or even understand what their beliefs are in order to say, I can make that decision with far more comfort now. And I know what it would take for me as an individual, not Ian, not Jeremy, not Jerome, just me as an individual, actually to see that through. Anyway,
I agree. I think that's wonderful. I think it'd be very interesting. I think it would definitely take a lot of time, and I think if you really kind of pulled it apart, it would probably open up a array of conversations, which would be very intriguing. I think so.
we might at some point go down that path, and I'll add this if you don't mind. I talk to a lot of people, and with varying degrees of energy and flair.
Sure, yeah.
But I hope you don't mind me saying you're one of the quietest spoken people I talk to.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think that's accurate.
But very well considered.
Mm.
And I love talking to you and being able to share the conversation with people, because it provides a great contrast as to say you don't have to be an extrovert with 50 billion joules of energy that's flowing out of you to say, I'm successful, or I can go and do this and I need to be this. Well, no, you don't need to be this way. Actually, you can be yourself.
Yeah.
But I think at the heart of that, if you can understand what yourself looks like, what makes you tick, what you're good at, what you're not, and that might be a journey. It certainly was for me.
Yeah,
and continues to be. Thanks very much.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
I think that's where the power is.
Yeah, I agree.
Ultimately, you do feel free. So I just wanted to thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No, that's very kind. No, I appreciate you saying that. I think that's a good description of myself. I feel like it's a natural order in a way. It's when you do genuinely care, I think, about with people and learning the little dynamics of staff and managing staff and a team. And I think you realize that if you're going to be a good leader, which I think everyone needs to really, every good manager shouldn't be, they should be a leader. I think they need to almost inspire, but also mentor and try to, I guess, instill open communication. And what I've learned, I guess, is as you start to talk with people more and learn about their own little issues and trying to balance that kind of life and problems with customers and stuff like that, is you actually, if you ignore it and you don't take it seriously, I think that's where you end up having issues with your relationships in general. And I guess where I'm going is when I'm trying to better myself and how I do things, it's all reflective of those kind of relationships, really, because again, I if there's a problem with staff and there's some whatever it may be, I feel like it's my duty to then try and kind of get down to the bottom of it. And it's very easy just to go, it's not my kind of problem, especially if it's more of like a personal or something they're dealing with home or just a general life, issue. But if you actually put the time in to try and learn about people, I think it actually really helps you, and it stops you being that person of just kind of giving this kind of textbook answers and giving advice, and you start to become actually like, oh, what actually, if I was in that person's shoes, what would I want to hear, or what would I want from this person? And I think that's what I'm trying to do. And it's probably a combination of being considerate and compassionate. One of the interesting little aspect of that, of self-development, I guess for me personally, was actually my wonderful wife that taught me this. And I wouldn't say I had a really bad problem with it, but I'm the normal kind of person.
She might have thought so.
Yeah. I'll give you a bit of detail. It's nothing extreme, I promise.
I might ring her after for confirmation and validation.
It was so I would say if I'm impatient with anything, I used to be. I'm considerably a different person in that sense. I was most impatient with driving and other drivers. And the classic thing, every classic kind of thing about driving where people are in the wrong lane and not indicating and all that, because, I think I'm the best driver in the world, like everyone else, So that was definitely one area that I was never good at, and maybe I never got brought to my attention until I met my now wife, and she was always
do that.
They
bring attention to all of the things that you don't want to talk about. You probably know is true, and some you've never thought of, just to put the knife in.
Yeah.
I think wife might be an acronym for something that I haven't worked out yet, but I'm sure it's not great.
We'll see if we can come up with something over the next few, something
to ponder, right, with your creativity.
The interesting lesson, it was actually really, I feel very lucky to have met someone that is very calm and sensible and emotionally intelligent. And there was a time where we were driving, and I think I was just impatient with someone who was maybe driving slow in the wrong lane, and or did something, and I don't remember the example. It was something silly. I know it's so mediocre, and but when you're again in my mind at those times, I was just so focused to get to work and do my job and do whatever I wanted to do. But anyway, with that aside, what my wife said was, she said, How do you know that this person isn't having a bad day, or they're just started learning driving, or they're doing this or that? And she gave all these wonderful examples to me, and I was like, at the time I kind of that's actually pretty good. But then I started really thinking about that a lot every time I drove, and started thinking about every time I had a little incident where I would, and then I'd start to think about that, what is the situation of this person? Why are they driving slow? Maybe they're just going through some real awful time, and they're just so numb, and they don't even realize that they're driving 10 Ks below the speed limit. And here's me just being impatient. And I guess what it really did is it really changed my perspective on a lot of things. And it was a great lesson, and allowed me to really think about a lot of the things I do, and not just something as simple as a silly transportation related, impatient moment, and just really trying to think about others and become a bit more compassionate in that sense. And I don't know where it all kind of comes from. I think it's just, again, it's a progress, because it's really hard to change your personality in that sense. If you do get irritated by something as simple as that, to flip, you can't just flip a switch. You need to put in time, and you need to keep yourself in check every time.
Need to reteach yourself.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I truly retaught myself how to do that and become a normal patient driver. And again,
why did you bring this up, Ian?
It's a great, I know it's an interesting example. I know the people of Perth and all the people watching this, we can have great conversations about stories about what's wrong with the transportation and the drivers of Perth.
I know I'm going to get in my car, drive off impatiently.
Ironically,
Ian, and then your wife's going to call me and I heard about you.
It's ironic we're in the city, and be leaving around peakish time as well. So this will test you guys as well. So I hope you can try to learn something from my experience. But it's look, I guess in being, in all seriousness, it's really a good lesson. I like. I've never actually shared that story, so I didn't articulate it as well as I wanted. But it's something that, when you start to make these little micro steps, and it could just be something as simple as just changing your traffic habits, your behavior in traffic rather. But when you start to really pick at them and aim for some kind of improvement in being a more well-rounded and balanced human, let's say, I really feel like that's it starts to snowball.
It does.
Thank you. Yeah, it does. And you then start to bring that into other aspects of your life. And one of the easiest parts of my life is my relationship with my wife. It's the easy, of course, I'm 40, I've had relationships before, but it's the easiest part of my life.
It's gold right there, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's gold right there.
So, that goes back to that security side of why I've, that's a massive security in my life now. But and a lot of it comes from just making. I feel like she's made me a better person, and even just trying to start with little micro steps with whether it's patience or respect or whatever, you might feel like you're lacking, if you just start it. I would encourage people to start it and just try every day just to be a little bit better, even just 1% better from the previous day.
That's a wonderful way of looking at it. If you've got something that bothers you as problematic, you don't have to solve it in one step.
Yeah.
But if you take one tiny step, decide what it is and just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
The doing is where the action is.
Correct.
In everything.
Correct.
So just do it. And then the next time you take another bit, and before you know it, it'll snowball, and you've made the change.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. And then you become really surprised on how it, how it does snowball, and you if you're very strategic with it in a sense, especially when it comes to business and staff, because I'm sure anyone that runs a business or works with people, they wouldn't argue if I was to say that one of the biggest ongoing challenges is those relationships. It's just life, so to speak, and the best thing you can try to improve on is becoming open with your communication and talking and not assuming, and really just trying to instill that confidence in your team, because it's really helped me a lot. And I'm very lucky to pretty much have all the staff that I started with and have developed. So, I mean,
it says something just on its own.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm really actually very proud of that, because again, that's probably contributing to where I get this confidence and this I guess self-belief as well, is that there's a reason why these people are staying, and it must be something that I'm doing.
Well, maybe you can go back and ask them, or maybe just leave it alone and enjoy what exists at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to wrap it up and leave it there. And just thank you so much for taking the time to come and have a chat. It's been wonderful.
No, it's been awesome. Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. Like I've genuinely listened to at least 3 of the other podcasts, and it's really good stuff. So disclaimer, right? If anyone, first of all, the biggest issue I have with your channel is you don't have enough views. You need more viewers, okay? So, but honestly, there is so much good content. So if I can say into the camera, please click on the channel and then look at the other videos and just watch them. They're just absolutely fascinating, and they're real people with like real wonderful advice, and not just for like business owners or managers or anyone, but just anyone that's just curious to learn a little bit more about real people. And so thank you for sharing. So it's really good.
Thank you for your thank you.
No worries. Yeah.
Great.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.